Andrés. Thanks a lot. I love the fact. I want to know.
GLEX
Let's do this, man.
Global Exploration.
All right. Well, bon dia. Buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Ça va? I don't know what else languages we have here, but welcome. I'm Andrés, and there's a lot that we want to do today. So first and foremost, thank you guys. Thank you to the team, local team from the Azores for having us here. And, well, I am Andrés. I'm one of the recent EC50 members for the Explorers Club. I'm an educator. I'm a conservationist, a scientist, and I also do a lot of communication work. Most of my work is in the Amazon or tropical regions across the globe, working in geothermal systems and other places. There's actually an anaconda skin right here that we use for outreach just to show how incredible these things can be. Now, some of you might have a more personal connection to me because I might be in your pants right now in that picture for your Explorers Club card. So I'm the guy on the background, so say hi. Welcome to I hope all of you get a chance to come to the Amazon one day. And this session in particular is quite exciting, right? Fire and ice, right? This section in its introduction, what did it say, right? It said, we want to look for harnessing opportunities. We want to explore these dynamic relationships, especially in these worlds of extremes. Now, extremes is something I'm quite attracted to. I'm a geothermal scientist, after all. I work on volcanoes in geothermal systems, have all sorts of fun stories there, and I'm currently living in the United States, so mention politics and it'll get to be an extreme environment quite quickly, right? But jokes aside, geothermal, earth, thermal, heat. You've got these amazing features across planet Earth that truly give life, that just give awe. You have an amazing world out there, and as we look at harnessing dualities, because a lot of us have quite talked about this, right? It's interesting because I keep thinking, on one end, I'm a scientist. I'm an earth scientist, a geologist, and so much of my training is in modern Western science, right? Repeatable, observable, conclusions. But the way I got to conservation was a totally different route. So where I'm a Western-trained scientist, I'm very much an indigenous-trained conservationist. I got to conservation because I was seeing all these massive trees as big as cars are around, disappearing from one year to the other, landscapes that I loved just going away, and my mentors and guides, different indigenous leaders and shamans, teaching me a better way to do things. So when we talk about being between extremes, I feel that oftentimes, we're very polarized in the way we talk about things and the way we teach about things. In fact, being in academia even, I feel so much of knowledge is currently being held hostage in this ivory tower. The information that we get is often not getting into the minds, into the hearts of the people that where it needs to be. We know the consequences of this. We know that currently scientists are being under attack. We know that nature, needs a lot of help. We need a lot of help. And in talking to some of my mentors and getting feedback on if I could share a concept here, what should it be? It's ultimately that connection. We are between two worldviews, between two worlds, right? We've got the ancestral knowledge and the Western science that have been part of my work, and the overlap can give us amazing things. So earlier today, you heard about life in other planets, right? One of the reasons geothermal systems are so important is because many people think that life's first life on Earth came from primordial geothermal muds. Earth kind of comes together 4.5 billion years ago, conditions for life potentially existing as early as 4.3 billion years ago, and the first fossils coming up 3.7 billion years ago, to give you an idea. Now, it's interesting. That's a scientific, advancement. But on the flip side, coming over here, I was reading, Norse myths. And if you look at Norse myths, the spirituality side of it, they talk about first life comes from this interface between fire and ice. Quite literally, the words that they use, right? They talk about Niflheim and Muspelheim. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. But there's this constant dualism across cultures, across countries, of destruction and creation, of protection and attacking, right? There's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot of places where obviously they don't see eye to eye perfectly, yet there's still a lot we can learn from each other. In fact, all of you, I'm going to ask, I do this with all of my students. I think it's one of the simplest and best lessons we can have. If you take your hand like this and put it on the tip of your nose, and now with both eyes, look up at the top of your finger right here without moving it, your finger stays in an XYZ point. If you close one eye, it'll move. Close the other eye, it'll move. So in your same head, you have two eyes. Both of your two eyes are hopefully working. But even within the same eye, tuck, 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 your finger starts dancing. We call that parallax error. The point of view. Not every methodology will give you a perfect answer. And sometimes in trying to change hearts, as well as minds, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do to face this climate crisis, to find climate solutions, I go to one of my favorite explorers of all time, Alexander von Humboldt, who has this amazing quote. What speaks to the soul escapes our measurements. I feel that infinitely resonates with so many people. In my case alone, I started studying geothermal not because of, the math formulas, but because as a kid growing up between Nicaragua, Peru, and the United States, in Nicaragua, I had these experiences with volcanoes. You touch a human body, it is warm. You feel that life. You touch a cold Andean mountain, it's cold, it's big, it's massive. You touch a volcano and you feel that heat. It's living, like a living mountain. That's what inspired me to start getting into this space. As an earth scientist, I found it amazing that my very subject matter starts when philosophy and observation about rocks come together, because if not, we could not have fathomed the concept of deep time. You need to think beyond a human. That's one of the reasons I love geology. If you look at this island, you've got volcanic edifices scattered across the island that give it its shape, that give it its form, and we truly are in a very special place right now. So if you look at where we are, you might compare it to, this might be like a Hawaii, or this might be like an Iceland. Well, yes and no. Geologically, we're in this very curious spot where three tectonic plates are meeting. A really interesting kind of volcanism. In Hawaii, you have a single plate with a single deep mantle plume coming up, pop, 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 punching holes in a straight line, creating these amazing volcanoes, amazing islands. Here, it's wild because it's kind of all over the place. One of the slowest spreading centers where new Earth is being created, one of them is actually right here on the island where we're on right now. So you are in a geologically very interesting location. Remember this perspective when you look out at the landscape. There's a reason why, Monte Brasil is the way that it is. There's a reason why every last detail on the landscape, the basaltic rocks that you are walking on to go to the next lunch, there's a reason why that's there. If you look at Iceland, for example, that's split between two plates. Here we're split between three. So remember that. Remember that there's a deeper geologic story. And if you want to go even deeper still, to unify all our friends that work in space to all our friends that work on the planet, even this story, look up at the sky at night, look at the planet here below. 4.5 billion years ago, you had two Earth-sized bodies doing circles around the sun that, boom, smash together, partially melt. A piece of that goes flying out and is still with us today as the moon, right? So you've got a geothermal story going on here, because half of the heat that we get to power our volcanoes today started here. We're part of the same continuum, part of the same connection. And this is why I think geothermal is one of the most fascinating fields of study, because it touches everything. Even the fact that out of this collision you had differentiation of core, mantle, crust, the start of this dynamo that gave us our magnetic sphere, a magnetosphere that protects us from the solar rays that otherwise would have made life impossible on the planet, that also give us our auroras and inspire countless legends and myths and parts of human culture. Here on this island, go get a bit of table salt and thank your local geothermal system, because it takes about 10 million years for all of the water to go into the earth, go into the very hydrothermal vents themselves and pop out with all this great sea salt. That's why our oceans are salty. So thank your geothermal system, right? When we blend these views and go beyond just our linear, we see amazing things. So ultimately, if you walk away with one thing, is please see the world with both eyes, both perspectives. Try to find them. To give you more background on this place, This place, the boiling river of the Amazon, is one of the most spectacular places I have ever seen. It started when I was a boy in Lima, and my grandfather tells me this amazing story, a legend of the conquest of Peru. Atahualpa, the emperor of the Inca, receives the Spaniards. He's sitting in a throne in a hot spring, by the way, to absorb the energy of the earth. Atahualpa is later betrayed by the Spaniards. He's captured. He's held ransom. He's later killed, betrayed, and so start the wars against the Spanish and the Incan Empire. The Inca lose, but what happens is new waves of wannabe conquistadores, wannabe Hernando Corteses, wannabe Pizarros come in all hungry for gold and glory. And they start asking, where's the next civilization to conquer? We want more gold. Now, out of vengeance, the Inca, according to the legends, tell them, oh, you want more gold? There's a city in the Amazon. It's called Paititi, El Dorado in Spanish. It's made entirely of gold. You guys are going to love it. So these guys go off looking for gold and glory, but few come back. The ones that come back talk about cannibals. They talk about poisonous arrows that will kill you in a nick and shamans with spells that would drive a man mad. They talk about giant snakes that could eat a man whole. Spiders so big that they can eat birds. Trees so tall they blot out the sun. And even a river that boiled. This was a childhood legend, and I pretty much had forgotten about it until I started working on my PhD in geophysics. I started asking this question, could the boiling river exist, or is it just a legend? Now, it's interesting, because in Peru, we're a big geologic mystery, because this is where the Ring of Fire breaks. It's active subduction, but not active volcanism. They turned off 1.7 to 2 million years ago, the volcanoes. So, no active volcanoes in pretty much the Amazon basin. So, shouldn't necessarily expect to see one. I asked for 2 years, experts, if this could be. Everyone said no. And then it wasn't until I was at a family dinner when my aunt tells me, no, Andrés, it exists. I've been there. She used to do indigenous rights work. She led me into the jungle to make friends with everybody. And, well, we took a plane. We took a car. We took a motorized canoe that in Peru we call a peque peque because, well, you turn on the motor and peque 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 peque, you know? I'm over 700 kilometers away from the nearest active volcanic center, but we see this. At 47 degrees C, you and I start to cook. The water temperatures when we took this picture were 86 degrees C. You're dead if you fall in. This place is over 700 kilometers, over 430 miles away from the nearest active volcanic center. Yet you have this massive river. 6.24 kilometers of thermal flow. At its widest point, almost 30 meters wide. At its deepest point, almost 4.5 meters deep. Now think of it. Imagine this. Think how much energy it takes to heat up your cup of tea or coffee in the morning. Hottest temperature I measured here, well, pretty hot. Which means if you fall in, adios muchachos. We cook quite quickly. But another nice pro about working at geothermal systems, instant tea. The waters are clean, have a pleasant taste, and are truly just amazing. Its indigenous name, Shanaitin Pishka, literally boiled with the heat of the sun, indicates to me that I am not the first person to wonder why this is boiling. That is an indigenous scientific name. That is a hypothesis of a name, and that is something that inspires me deeply. One of the most meaningful things that ever happened, this is one of my mentors, Maestro Juan Flores. I was showing him when we did this graph right here, right? The distance along the river, the temperature, and how it shifts every 10 meters, right? And I show him this graph, temperature against distance, and he's like, okay. Interesting. And then I start saying, well, this point is the Yakumama, and this point is, I give him all the names of all of the sites. And he says, his eyes open up and says, Andrés, this is fantastic. These are the places of the most spiritual power. It makes all the sense in the world. This is where these spirits live. Of course it would be the best spots for geothermal too. It was this beautiful moment of, was he doing modern Western science with repeatable, blah, 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 blah? No. Was I doing shamanic healing and traditional knowledge? No, but when we brought both views together, we got the richness of humanity, which is the curiosity of why we are here. Why does our planet look the way that it does? This is a place of legends and spirits. This is a place of fantastic science. This is a place where the river starts. This cold stream turns into this big, hot thermal river, and just at the mouth of the Yakumama, a giant serpent spirit, 30 meters long, that gives birth to hot and cold water. Western science will look up at the stars and tell you, oh, I see the constellations. I can connect those dots. What I've learned from my indigenous training, there's more than just that there. There are dark constellations in the sky too that you cannot ignore because they will add to your richness. See the world with both eyes. I also learned that the city of gold, Paititi, does exist. It does. But see with both eyes, because kori, the word for gold, can also be used as a word for life. And if you are telling someone there is a city made of life, there is no better place in the world to see life than the Amazon. You leave the Amazon and the rest of the world just seems sterile because everything's buzzing, slithering, moving. It's fantastic. The Boiling River is an amazing place, and more than anything else, it has taught me one thing: to redefine the word sacred. That is my blending of my science and my Western science and my traditional indigenous knowledge. How do we redefine sacred? And the answer that I have found is, what is sacred is not necessarily the church, not necessarily the mosque, not this, that. What's sacred is quite simply what gives life. Clean water is sacred. Clean food is sacred. The personal connection that you have with each other, with your landscapes, that is sacred. It gives life. The things that disconnect are the things that tend to kill us. One of the most outstanding things about this is I have learned, and this might sound weird to some of you, but doing this work, learning from all of these sources, has taught me that geothermal conservation, the protection, responsible use, and fair use, reciprocal use of these systems across the globe should probably be our number one conservation priority. Very strange, I know, but they're more than just hot springs. They're entire microcosmos, they're entire ecosystems. If anyone has taken a PCR test in the past 3 years, maybe, I don't know, never heard of PCR, I guess. Think a geothermal system. PCR came from Thermus aquaticus. It opened up a multi-trillion-dollar industry, has saved countless lives, gave us one of the two workhorses of modern biotech. The other one, CRISPR, guess what? Also an extremophile ecosystem. So you start seeing new things. Nature has already found these extreme solutions, because guess what? When you turn on your computer, when you turn on your car, when you start to cook, you're creating a micro-extremophile ecosystem, even in your non-extremophile human daily life. So these ancient microbes, or potentially ancient microbes, could be teaching us a lot, how to live better, how to find solutions. Every geothermal site I have ever visited across the globe has an amazing story to tell. There's a part of science, there's a part of culture, there's a part of humanity connecting with our landscape and trying to make sense of where we came from in this big, beautiful world. It's not unique to the Boiling River, is what I found. It's all over the globe. So together with our team, we were just about to launch a new project, mapping all of the world's hot springs, lots of citizen science there, to connect, to advocate for the protection, to make sure that next time they find a PCR or CRISPR, that hopefully a small percentage of that goes back to the land, goes back to protecting these sites that literally are scattered all over the globe. So, muchas gracias por su tiempo. Thank you for your time. And enjoy your geothermal systems.